everyone, welcome to our YouTube channel. So as you know, we are discussing the various literary theories that are there. In this video, we are going to discuss structuralism. So structuralism, say I see a lot of questions being asked. So we will study about what is structuralism, what are the characteristics of this theory, basic tenets and the one who started to talk about it. So structuralism was not something that began in the literary theory only. First of all, it entered the you can say the linguistics domain and the other domains like anthropology. Then gradually it seeped down to the literary theory also. So what is structuralism? Structuralism is basically a way to understand the culture, a way to understand the meaning of the given art that you have. And that everything can be divided into structures. Everything is there. There is always binary oppositions into play. There is always structure that comes into play. So this is structuralism, right? So structuralism, you can say, is nothing but a relationship that is created between different things, and everything can be compartmentalized. So structuralism, first of all, was used in philosophy. Then it was used in history, linguistics, anthropology, and later in literature. So in literature, it was brought by many theorists, and we are going to discuss this gradually in the many videos that I'm going to have around structuralism. Right, so let us read about structuralism first. So the term structuralism is a related term that describes a particular movement or a movement. The term first appeared in the works of this French anthropologist Claude Lévi-Strauss, and it gave rise, this word, it was given rise in France first. And it was called as the movement of structuralist movement. It gave rise to the movement, structuralist movement. It is going to influence many thinkers like Louis Althusser and the psychoanalysis Jacques Lacan. So these are the people who are going to be enamored by this word structuralism, and they are going to introduce it to the literary theory also. Then we have Fernando de Saussure, one of the most important linguists, who talked about the symbol, the sign and the signifier, and that is also something very important. We are going to discuss it in the further videos when we are going to talk about Fernando de Saussure in detail. Okay, so let us talk about structuralism as a theory now. So in the 1960s, this approach of studying literature called as the structuralism became very popular. The Swiss linguistics, the Fernando de Saussure, who is also called as the father of modern linguistics, influenced the theory through which he is going to examine the language, a system of science, and he called it as semiology. Right? So he said that language is nothing but a symbol. Language is always a system. There is always the symbols there, and for every symbol there is sign and signify. Right? So these are the two concepts that we are going to discuss when we talk about Fernando de Saussure, who is also called as the father of modern linguistics. What he said, so Saussure developed an approach of studying the language, which he saw is made up of various linguistic signs. So there are linguistic signs, which you can call it as a word, and every word is a relationship between two things. What are these two things? The first is the signifier and the second is the signified. So you have the sound image that is called as the signifier, and then you have the concept itself, that is the signified, right? So these are the two things that he talked about. Then Charles Sanders Peirce and Fernando de Saussure are the two important theorists who started to talk about structuralism. So as I told you, linguistics as well as structuralism or the literary theory were two things that were very closely knit together. So जब linguistics ने जब जितने भी linguists थे उन्होंने इसके बारे में बात करना स्टार्ट किया, तो ये चीजें आपकी इंग्लिश पे भी, इंग्लिश लिटरेरी स्टडीज के अंदर भी इम्पैक्ट करने लग गई. Peirce gave structuralism three important ideas for analyzing the system of the signs or the sign systems. It can be identified as iconic signs, indexes and true symbols. Just as Fernando de Saussure talked about the signifier and the signified, it is Charles Sanders Peirce who talked about iconic signs, indexes as well as the true symbols. right? So let us quickly discuss about Charles here, because sometimes this is also asked in the paper, right? So what is iconic signs? In which the signifier resembles the thing signified, such as the stick figures of the washroom doors that signify men or women. So this is the first sign that he talks about, and he said that this, actually the sign, if you have this word sign, he said you can understand the meaning in the three ways. First is the iconic sign. First is the iconic sign, where you know that this symbol that is there in front of you is denoting something completely. So there are stick images when you enter the washroom. There are stick images like this, right? Suppose, right? So you know this is the female and this is the male. So men and women. So this will denote in front of a washroom. अगर ये कोई symbol बना होगा, so you will get to know that ये stick figure men washroom denote करती है और ये women washroom denote करती है. Then there are indexes. So what is indexes? In which the signifier is reliable indicator of the presence of the signified, like fire and smoke. So it is the reliable symbol that they are using, जैसे fire या फिर smoke. Then comes the true symbols, which the signifier's relation to the thing signified is random and conventional, just as the sound cat or the written word cat are conventional signs. So if you are just hearing or you are just looking at something, or you're just hearing the sound cat, this is something that comes to your mind also, the image of cat. So this is the conventional signs that are there. So ऐसे कुछ sign होंगे जो iconic signs होंगे, जैसे कि वो directly आपको समझ आ जाएंगी चीजें. कुछ indexes हो सकते हैं जो बहुत relatively close होंगे, कुछ हो सकते हैं true symbols that are used, right? So if you just listen to this word sound of cat, जो कि चाहे K से क्यों ना start हो, you will think about cat. So इस तरीके से we have Charles Sanders who started to talk about language, that everything that is there in every sphere of life, you have a language, and all the languages can be further divided. There are always signs and symbols, right? We have Fernandez de Saussure who talked about what? He said there are two ways you understand the meaning, the signifier and the signified. We will understand this in the next video, right? So then comes Roland Barthes and Jacques Derrida, who were the one who focused structuralism and then brought this to the literary sphere. So first of all, Charles and Fernandez de Saussure started to talk about structuralism in the linguistics domain. But Roland Barthes and Jacques Derrida will bring it where? They will bring it and they will apply it to literature as well. Now, let us study about the characteristics of structuralism. So, if I tell you a story, so a boy is going to meet a girl, the girl thinks that she is in danger, then boy comes and is going to rescue the girl. So, whenever you listen to this story, there is one thing that will come to your mind, that is there is this damsel in distress, the knight in shining armor is going to save her. So these are what? These are already structures that are there in your mind. There are always structural knowledges that we gain in through our perceptions and through our consciousness. We don't even realize that there are always compartmentalization around us. This is what structuralists were talking about. They said that there can never be open interpretations, and there can never be, you can say each and every one has a different interpretation. So this thing never works for a structuralist. According to them, there are always proper binaries, there are always proper oppositions and plot line or storyline that are going to match some other plot or storyline. So everything is divided into structures. This is what they started to talk about, right? So when a literary text is studied using structuralism, the text is connected to a wider structure. So jab bhi you have a text, so what will happen? You will read a text and you are going to combine it, join it and relate it to another text that you have already read. You can write this line. This is going to help you. When a literary text is studied using structuralism, the text is connected to a wider structure that is there. This might include a kind of literature the text is a part of, right? So the text becomes a part of a broader literature, or in a universal way, there must be a story related to what you are reading, right? So जैसे मैंने आपको अभी एग्जाम्पल दिया, you must have read so many stories. That is why Claude Lévi-Strauss ने भी इन सब चीजों के बारे में बात की थी. That there are always myths, right? And there are stories, and every story is going to start or relate to a particular myth, right? And he used structuralism in the field of anthropology, right? So in this case, the structuralist mines the text for certain common themes and patterns. So what do they think? They think that every text has some common themes. Every text has some common themes and they mines for it. What do you mean by mines? They always feel that हम लोगों को text एक common structures या theme के around पढ़ना है, right? Let us read about it. So structuralism asks about the deep structure of things as opposed to cause or consequences. So they are not looking at the broader picture of the text. They are only talking about the structures that are created, and everything is going to be connected to something that we have already read. It is holistic. The parts of a system cannot be investigated in isolation. They can only be understood through their interaction with other parts. There are always interaction with the other parts. It is not studied in isolation. It is always going to make a binary opposition, or you can say there will be some kind of a structure that is created. The meaning of an utterance depends on the language being spoken. The meaning of or the gesture depends on the culture context. So whatever you do, whether it is a word, the word has always some context related to it. It is always going to be related to the cultural context, or maybe the language that you are using is also related to something. So there will always be what? There will always be structures. Structuralism opposes positivism. Positivists prefer to explain things in terms of observable entities. Structuralists work on unobservable structure beneath the chaotic observable world. So the world is very chaotic, but they will do what? They will compartmentalize everything. Everything will have a proper narrative structure for them, right? There will always be a proper narrative structure. So what do structuralists believe? Structuralists believe that the underlying structure which organize the rules and units into meaningful systems are originated by human mind itself and not by the senses of perception. So according to them, ये कोई sense perception नहीं है. ऐसा नहीं है कि कोई भी text read करेगा तो हर किसी की अपनी अलग interpretation होगी and you can go with it. No, it is always, there are always what? There are always proper structures, and human mind can do that. Okay? And human mind can do that. Then, structuralists acknowledge the contrasting nature of the social structures. People's actions are constrained, whether they know it or not, by the structures which underline it. जो भी हम actions करते हैं, जो भी हम structure जो भी हम बोल रहे हैं, या फिर हम कोई भी word use कर रहे हैं, sentence use कर रहे हैं, तो वो सारी चीजें already ही structured है. We don't even realize that whatever we are doing is structure. The work, the actions, they are always constrained in one thing or another. So what are these structuralist people asking? What are the basic questions that they are asking? First of all, they will look for patterns. So if you're reading a text A, there will be some similarity with text B, and they will look for what? They will look for patterns. What is something they are looking? They are looking for patterns. First thing. Then they are looking for binary oppositions like good, evil, or dark, light, or there can be tall or short. They are always looking for binary oppositions like good or evil. So if you have read, say, Romeo and Juliet, a very important text. So what happens? We of course have the same story. The lovers are there, and you must have read so many stories about lovers, and then there is a subplot there. Subplot about two families. So how will you read the text? How will a structuralist read the text? There are two plots, plot A and plot B. In plot A, everything is good. Maybe in the plot B, everything is evil. This is how they will structure everything, right? This is how they will structure everything in the proper patterns. Structuralists believe that if the readers do not understand the sign, they may misinterpret or misread a text. Furthermore, structuralists do not focus on the overall meaning of the text, but on the linguistic texture of the text. So what is important for them? The overall meaning or the overall essence of the text is not important for them. But what is important is the texture that they got, or the linguistic structure of the text that can be divided into binaries, oppositions, structures, etc. This theory does not focus on the author's intent, and it does not focus on the objective interpretation without clouding the text with the subject or the emotional interpretation. So they say that there should be no emotional interpretation or outside influence of the text, that should not be there, and they do not focus on the author's intent of writing the text as well. So the focus, so what are the basic characteristics we can revise? A focus on the underlying structure of the literary text, the meaning of the text and the interrelationship of the parts, the binary oppositions, and everything that is compartmentalized. This is something that these people were talking about, right? But there is definitely something that is the weakness of the theory. What is the weakness? It is difficult to know who controls the meaning of the text and what happens if the readers do not agree with each other when interpreting the sign in a text. But what will happen, because we all know language is very arbitrary, what will happen if we do not agree to it? Who is the one who will then control the meaning? This is something that was weak when it comes to this theory. But it is very clear that what the structuralists were doing, the structuralists believe that हर चीज जो भी हमारे आसपास है, it can be compartmentalized. Whatever you were saying, Claude Lévi-Strauss, as I told you, when he will use this in anthropology, he will write many works like Savage Mind, and he will say that हर चीज जो भी हम कर रहे हैं वो myth से ही आ रही है. And he uses the example of Oedipus Rex, right? He will use that and he will say that there are archetypal structures that are always there. Whatever you do, whatever you say, there are always structures and constraints, and we don't even understand it. So, first of all, we have Fernandez de Saussure, who said that there is a symbol, there is a signifier and the signified always, and you will understand the meaning in this manner only. Then comes your Charles. Charles will say that there are 3 ways in which you can find the meaning. What are these 3 ways? This was recently asked in the paper also. So, he will say that there can be different signs, iconic sign, indexes or true symbols from which you can understand the meaning. But this means that there will always be compartmentalization and there will always be structures that are maintained. And this is something that was started by, and they all started to use it while reading the literary text as well. So Roland Barthes, Jacques Derrida will use it when reading the text. So I hope you understood what basically is structuralism. If you have any doubt, you can ask me that in the comment section and I'll surely reply to you. Thank you.